This is Joy News Prime with me, Samuel Kojo Brace. In our headlines, this are Ghana's quest to secure an IMF bailout. It gets a major boost as the U.S. government commits to convince all of Ghana's external creditors to agree to help Ghana secure the program with the IMF.
Welcome Ghana's commitment to reforming its economy to deliver sustainable and inclusive growth. We
have details as Ghana is set to secure $100 million support from the U.S. together with other West African countries to fight terrorism. Now, also in this bulletin, where does the U.S. stand on Ghana's controversial LGBTQ bill, which is currently in Parliament?
Human rights issues, equality issues across the board, including as it relates to the LGBT community. And I feel very strongly about the importance of supporting the freedom and supporting and fighting for equality among all people.
More now, a financial consultant says now is the time for Ghana to introduce the Financial Stability Fund, as the governor of the Bank of Ghana reviews recently concluded domestic debt exchange program has negatively affected local banks. Now, former President John Dramani Mahama takes on the Akufo-Addo government for excessive borrowing from the Bank of Ghana as he was vetted by the NDC executives for the vacant flag bearer slot.
2016, we financed the government of Ghana budget without a single CD from the Bank of Ghana. Today, this administration currently owes the Bank of Ghana 50 billion cedis.
We have details as host of MPs and party executives endorse his candidature, accompany him to his vetting today.
Who will support him and make sure that he gets the nod to lead the party come 2024.
JM is our best bet. It's our best foot going forward.
Now, I expect the cost of borrowing to go up in the next few weeks as the Bank of Ghana increases its policy rates. Now, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has increased the monetary policy rate by 150 basis points from 28 to 29.5% in its latest report. Now, the prime rate, which is of keen interest to businesses, signals the rate at which the Bank of Ghana will lend to commercial banks. Now, it also subsequently influences the average lending rate on loans to individuals and businesses. Governor of the Central Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, has been addressing the press on the latest development.
Under the staff-level agreement with the IMF, the Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance have finalized a memorandum of understanding on zero financing to the budget, which will be signed shortly. The passage of the relevant revenue bills by Parliament will therefore conclude the required prior actions to advance Ghana's program to the IMF Executive Board. This will be critical in resetting the economy on the path of recovery, including putting it firmly on a disinflation path and sustained growth. Headline inflation has declined marginally for 2 consecutive months, but continues to remain relatively high compared to the medium-term target of 8 plus or minus 2%. To place the economy firmly on the path of stability and reinforce the pace of disinflation, it is important that the monetary policy stance be tuned further to re-anchor inflation expectations towards the medium-term target. Given these considerations, the MPC decided to increase the monetary policy rate by 150 basis points to 29.5%. Additional measures. The committee also decided to reset the cash reserve ratio on domestic currency deposits for banks from 12% to 14% effective 13th April 2023. In addition, the bank will step up liquidity management operations to address excess liquidity conditions in the market. The committee will continue to monitor developments in the banking sector and deploy other macro-prudential tools to ensure financial stability.
Isaac Kofiaje is a data analyst here at Joy News, and he joins me with what particularly influenced this decision. Kofi, we want to understand what got the Bank of Ghana's MPC to then decide to take on this decision.
So if you look on the touch screen right now, what we have is the policy rate and inflation rate.
Okay.
So usually what is happening in the inflation space will determine what will happen in the policy rate market. So if you look at this, you can see a stepwise movement of Ghana's policy rate, which is currently 28%, but it will be changed from 28% to 29.5%.
Okay.
Now, the Bank of Ghana governor said that we are actually seeing inflation coming down from the peak of 54.1% now to somewhere 52.8%. But we are still anticipating that although inflation is slumping, we still believe that we need to keep policy rates high so that the excess liquidity in the system can be mopped. That is why the Bank of Ghana has actually decided to increase the monetary policy rate by 150 basis points. What this simply means that, just like you said, the cost of borrowing for the private sector will increase. So this is the rate at which the Bank of Ghana lends to commercial banks. So it means if the Bank of Ghana is increasing their interest rates on the monies they lend to commercial banks, then it means commercial banks will also increase the interest rates on the monies they also lend to individuals or private persons who goes to these banks to borrow. So if last year you took a loan and let's say you are paying 500 cedis on that loan every month, expect it to go high. If you are paying a certain amount because of the current increase in the policy rate, expect that commercial banks will also decide to increase the interest that they charge on loans they give to private persons.
Which means that in this case, inflation wasn't the influencer.
Inflation is actually the influencer, although Bank of Ghana, they still believe that there's excess liquidity. So we have more money chasing less goods, and that's causing the inflation we are seeing, although there are some pass-through effects. But they still believe that, excess liquidity in the system causing the inflation rate to still, although it's slumping, but probably slumping at a decreasing rate. So they want to make sure that they are able to use the monetary policy rate to tackle the inflation problems that we have.
Okay. Now, we also do understand the central bank saying that it's no longer going to finance government's budget. What is causing this?
Well, so one thing that we know is that although we are looking for 3 billion from the IMF, we have some conditions that we need to meet. So on the screen right now is last year, 2022, our fiscal position. So look at this side for 2022 when we began the year. This was our budget. We wanted to raise $100.5 billion and then also billion Ghana cedis and spend some money. What we were anticipating was that by the end of the year, we would have spent this amount in 2022, then also generate what's in
100. Okay.
100. But we revised it, it was revised to 96.7 billion Ghana cedis, causing a deficit of somewhere around almost close to 40 billion. By the end of the year, we ended up raising just 96.7. So if you compare 96.7 to the 100 that we wanted to raise, it means we missed about 4 billion Ghana cedis. Yeah. What we wanted to spend actually, although we revised it to 135, it actually went up from the 135 to 146.3. So we ended up spending more than we actually wanted to spend, causing a difference of almost 50 billion, Ghana cedis. But Bank of Ghana is saying that this year, although the projected deficit is around 60 billion, they've actually signed an MOU with the Finance Ministry to make sure that there's 0% financing of a budget deficit. So in 2023, what Bank of Ghana is saying is that they are not going to finance the over 60 billion deficit that we've actually created as a result of the difference between what we've projected to raise and what we've projected to spend.
Okay, Kofi, stay with me, because we also do now know that the domestic debt exchange program that government implemented has a telling impact on banks. This was revealed by the governor of the Bank of Ghana Monday when he was addressing the press. Listen.
Developments in the banking sector broadly reflected the challenging operating environment in 2022 on account of macroeconomic conditions and the recent implementation of the Domestic Debt Exchange Program, in which all 23 universal banks participated. Our preliminary assessment of the impact of the DDEP on the banking sector based on December 2022 data indicates significant losses on account of impairment of banks' holdings in Government of Ghana bonds. The impact of the DDEP as currently assessed is moderated by the timely introduction of regulatory reliefs by the Bank of Ghana to support the banking sector, similar to the reliefs provided to the banks at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, the industry is still fairly resilient. A preliminary assessment will be updated once banks' external auditors complete their audits of banks' 2022 financial performance, making the necessary adjustments to reflect fully the impact of the DDEP.
Now, banking consultant Dr. Richmond Etuahene joins us on the line now for a conversation on this because he predicted that this was to be the case. In fact, they released an academic article to suggest that some banks will suffer from the DDEP. Doc, I'm grateful that you could join us. Now, you earlier pressed the alarm bells. Will you say this is a vindication of what you had warned us about? And why were you so sure that this was going to be the case?
Thank you very much, my brother. I mean, somebody will say we use data and science. And exactly the data and science was what used. So I wasn't surprised at all because I have the figures in front of me. I know every bank's bond. And I know the coupon rate was 19.3. If you reduce the coupon rate to, and the maturity is up to 5 years, and you reduce the coupon rate to 9% over 15 years, if you use the net present value, you get what I did. And so the figures are in front of me. I still stand by what I said, that at least 9 were in serious difficult position. So I wasn't surprised. The governor said what he said, because it is actually vindicates what we have done, myself and my colleague. So I'm not surprised at all.
Okay. Now, you say that now is the time for the government to look at, a stabilization fund or financial stability fund to cater for these banks that will be struggling as a result of the DDP. But the governor also tells us that there are some relief or support of a sort that they've been given to the banks. Aren't those enough?
I think originally the governor said that they were going to establish a stability fund to support. The stability fund is supposed to support the liquidity losses, not the solvency. Let me get it clear. The liquidity support is different from the solvency. And let me explain why the liquidity is different. The liquidity crisis is simple. Your asset has been extended over a long period. Meanwhile, customers' deposit we use in buying it hasn't been extended. So therefore, the customers will be paid some deposits, already a higher deposit than what you are going to earn over the period. That is going to impact on the liquidity. It is different from the solvency. The solvency is calculated by the period and applying IFRS 9. When you apply IFRS 9, you use the losses and hit your capital and reserves. But the solvency is going to be supported. Banks that would need to be given other monies to support the running of their banks. That is what I was talking about.
But if you look at the financial situation of government, although the central bank is quite autonomous, but is it something that you foresee the country having the resources to do?
Well, at the moment, let me use a country like Greece. Greece went through a similar charge in 2013. When they were looking for funding from IMF and the European Bank, they captured the needed sums of money in addition to the bailout, so that maybe we could have asked for 6 billion, so that we'll use the 3 to support the various banks, the public sector banks, because now you're going to call on the shareholders and the board to recapitalize. It's going to be a very difficult situation. And even to add to what you've just said, it was published by Bloomberg on 6/16 that some foreign banks in Ghana have started already coming to capitalize. About 4 of them They are bringing a new injection to recapitalize the position of the bank. So I think way forward, we need to be very careful whenever we are taking decisions on this restructuring. Yesterday, the director of research at IMF, is it Abe Hadi? I've forgotten his name. He's a Cameroonian. He's a Ethiopian. Yesterday, he said that countries that are going to adopt Ghana's debt restructuring should be very, very careful. Other than that, they will destroy the domestic sector banking. Yesterday, it was published. So I believe we should have actually talked about it, discuss it, know the pros and cons before going for this treatment. And unfortunately, a lot of work were not done on it.
Okay.
So it looks like it's now coming to hit us. For us, we should have prepared before being hit by it. So we hope that the government will find means of supporting them, and the other institutions, those who are ready to capitalize, will capitalize to bring the banks sector into another good shape.
Grateful that you could join us here. Dr. Richmond Etiahene is a banking consultant. And now one interesting development that also happened is to the effect that the Bank of Ghana is reporting a trade surplus. Now, according to the bank, Ghana recorded a trade surplus of $752.8 million in the first 2 months of 2023, about 1.0 of gross domestic product data from the Bank of Ghana has disclosed. This is far more than the surplus of $205.8 million recorded during the same period in 2021. Now, the significant growth in trade surplus was due to significant proceeds from gold exports, while net import also fell. Isaac Kofi is still with me. It would help us understand what the data really points to. So help us understand what's accounting for this.
Well, so what we have on the screen right now is just the difference between how much you are importing versus how much you are exporting. The difference between that will give you the trade balance, whether it is negative or positive, or a surplus or a deficit. So if you compare 2022 from January to February, if you look at the cumulative amount of money we got from export, it was around 2.5 billion Ghana cedis. We were getting monies from things like, raw crude, gold, and then also cocoa and other things. It was around $2.5 billion. But if you compare that same period in 2022, last year, to what we have currently, it's about $2.8 billion. It's almost $3 billion. The difference or the percentage change between periods around, 12%. For imports, this is what is actually having a big toll on our international reserves and the kind of the reserves we get in the country. If you look at the same period in 2022, import bill was around $1.7 billion just between January and February. This same period is $2 billion, the rise about 18%. But the good thing is that if you look at the difference between import and export, although it has increased between periods, if you look at what we got in 2022 between the same period, 206, and what we have currently, 753, the percentage change is more than 200%. And that's very positive because we saw how import bill was actually affecting our international reserve. No wonder in the MPC report, the the governor actually reported that we've seen our international reserve increasing, although it's marginal. But this is the first time in a long time that we've seen our international reserve actually increasing. So positive news there, as seeing our balance of trade increasing by more than 200%.
Grateful to you. Isaac Kofi is a data analyst here at Joy News. Now moving on to other stories now. The United States of America government has committed to assisting Ghana to secure favorable terms from its creditors as part of measures to secure an international monetary fund program. Now, the nation is currently racing against time to secure a $3 billion loan facility from the fund to restore Ghana's economic to a sound footing. Now, the finance minister just concluded talks with China and hopes to equally get a favorable deal from the Paris Club. Now, President Akufo-Addo, who held a closed-door meeting with the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, said the two nations had committed to working together. Presidential correspondent Elton Brobe has more in this report.
Issues of the economy, human rights, as well as security dominated discussions between President Akufo-Addo and the visiting U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris here at the Jubilee House. Now let's start from the economy. Remember that Ghana is before the IMF seeking a bailout of almost $3 billion for an extended credit facility. The Vice President of the United States of America says that the U.S. will support Ghana in its bid to secure the loan from the IMF.
With regard specifically to the economy, I recognize the challenges Ghanaians are facing, especially in the wake of a global pandemic and the disruptions caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We welcome Ghana's commitment to reforming its economy to deliver sustainable and inclusive growth. We support Ghana's engagement with the IMF and will continue to push for all bilateral creditors to provide meaningful debt reduction for countries that need it, including Ghana. We must work together as an international community to ease the debt burden that is facing far too many countries. It is critical to do so, to build long-term economic growth and prosperity, and to increase U.S. investment, a key priority for our administration, and in particular, private sector investment.
On the issue of human rights abuses, especially on the continent, that issue also came up strongly. Now, for Ghana, the proper human sexuality bill, a private member's motion, is before Parliament for consideration. When passed, it will seek to impose some penalties on the LGBT community. Now, for the U.S. Vice President, people who are into LGBT have rights that should be respected by all. She considered it a human rights issue, and that must be respected.
I have raised this issue, and let me be clear about where we stand. First of all, for the American press who are here, you know that a great deal of work in my career has been to address human rights issues, equality issues across the board, including as it relates to the LGBT community. And I feel very strongly about the importance of supporting the freedom and supporting and fighting for equality among all people, and that all people be treated equally. I will also say that this is an issue that we consider, and I consider, to be a human rights issue, and that will not change.
President Akufo-Addo was quite emphatic when he said that there is currently no legislation in Ghana that prohibited the practice of LGBT, but was quick to add that the private member's motion is an instrument that has been presented to Parliament by some members of Parliament. Indeed, he went on to say that the Attorney General, through his own intervention, has ensured that the initial structure of the bill has been modified.
The bill has been proposed to the Parliament of Ghana, which has all kinds of ramifications, which is now being considered by the Parliament. It hasn't been passed, so the statement that there is legislation in Ghana to that effect is not accurate. No legislation. The bill is going through the Parliament. It's going through the Parliament. The Attorney General has found it necessary to speak to the committee about it regarding the constitutionality or otherwise of several of its provisions, and the Parliament is dealing with it.
During this news conference, beyond what the President said, there wasn't any more clarity on the matters that are before the government on the anti-LGBT bill. We can only wait for Parliament to make some movement on it, and then we'll know the new bill, as we've been told that there's been some modification by President Akufo-Addo. From the Jubilee House, Elton Brobe for Joy News.
Now, let's just stay with Kamala Harris's visit because she is here in Africa for bilateral talks, and she's here with her husband, who has been on another campaign to promote affirmative action. At a town hall meeting today at the Labone Senior High School for the YOLO TV series, the husband said there was a need to empower women for a better future. There's more in this report by Jacqueline and Sumayeboa.
The sequel of the series, Things We Do for Love, You Only Live Once, popularly known as YOLO, embarked on a town hall event to create awareness on youth-related issues such as adolescent reproductive health, teenage pregnancy, COVID-19, and many more. The guest of honor, Doug Emhoff, husband of Kamala Harris, expressed his profound gratitude to the YOLO production team for such an educational series and stated that he was thrilled to know that the show addresses issues affecting women and that his main priority during his visit is to help address such issues.
So thank you to the educators, the stars, the producers for shining a light on these issues, shining a light on these issues that are so important to young people who sometimes don't feel heard, and sometimes you don't feel like anyone is looking at you and can see you, but we do see you. The second gentleman, I've spoken out a lot about the importance of women in leadership roles and advancing women's rights. While I'm in Ghana and throughout my travels in Africa, I'm going to be focused on reaffirming the United States' commitment to advancing rights for women and young girls all around the world.
Popular Ghanaian actor Majid Michel stated that the historic visit by Mr. Emhoff goes a long way to impact the youth to make good choices.
These people have been in leadership for over 200-300 years compared to us. How old is Ghana? Ghana is in the 60s. Compared to them, we're still adolescents. Anyone representing America that comes to this soil, America is on this soil, which is a great impact leadership. These children listening to this man speak means a lot to us because we know the impact that his words will make on these students, and that is the focus. The focus is not America. The focus is the people of Ghana and the youth in particular. We are here to not motivate, we are here to instruct them to make the right choices, to do the right things, to take fear out of them, for them to take what is theirs.
Actress Jackie Appiah also revealed that the impact of Doug Emhoff's visit has a great impact on the movie industry in Ghana.
And I'm so happy that I'm part of history because this is the first time such a dignitary is taking part in anything that has to do with movie making or filmmaking in Ghana.
Mr. Emhoff is currently on a 3-day visit to Ghana with Vice President Kamala Harris. Jacqueline Ansuma-Yebua's report for Joy News.
Just watching Joy News Prime, still to come here. Former President John Dramani Mahama takes on the Akufo-Addo government for excessive borrowing from the Central Bank of Ghana.
In 2016, we financed the government of Ghana budget without a single CD from the Bank of Ghana. Today, this administration currently owes the Bank of Ghana 50 billion cedis.
Welcome back from the break there. Now, let's do some more stories here. The former President John Dramani Mahama has been lashing out at President Akufo-Addo for excessively borrowing from the Bank of Ghana. Now, in a rebuke during his address following an appearance before the NDC's vetting committee, the former president promised to run a fiscally disciplined government, insisting he will build on his record from his time as president. He also promised to deepen governance and accountability. I apologize, we'll bring you that sound later. Now, John Mahama is also confident as he dazzled before the 12-member vetting committee in an encounter which lasted a little under an hour.
I was asked questions about the party, how to strengthen the party, the electoral process. I was asked about Parliament, how to strengthen our group in Parliament. But most of all, I was asked questions about the country and my views for repairing and also improving governance in Ghana. It was a very serious interview. And I do think that because of the experience I have, the committee, myself, been impressed at the delivery that I gave. But the work starts now, and I don't underestimate the enormous responsibility I'm taking upon myself. It's my hope that my colleagues with whom I am standing for the presidential primaries, we would come together as one after I have emerged as the presidential candidate. That we will rally together in order to ensure that NDC wins the victory in the 2024 elections.
He's been rebuking government, the NPP government, of excessive borrowing from the Bank of Ghana. He promised to deepen governance and accountability.
We're going to have two main agendas for a new NDC government. Of course, the first one will be taking steps to revitalize our economy and put it back on its feet. And of course, having served under Professor Tamil's and one term under my own leadership, we all saw how we managed to repair our economy, and for the first time in the history of Ghana, in 2016, we financed the government of Ghana budget without a single CD from the Bank of Ghana. Today, this administration currently owes the Bank of Ghana 50 billion cedis. We're going to bring discipline back into our finances. That is the first order of work we have. The second order of work is to repair our systems, to guarantee that the media can work freely without harassment from any quarters, to guarantee that corruption will be fought without the president clearing anybody, to guarantee that the anti-corruption institutions will have a free mandate to carry out their duty against anybody, whoever you are, to make sure that CSOs have space to be able to express themselves without fear or favor, to ensure that we review our constitution to make it a more dynamic document to take us into the future. These are some of the issues that will be on our agenda for a new NDC government.
Meanwhile, some NDC MPs say they have not been able to sleep since some of their colleagues betrayed the NDC and have voted to approve the president's ministerial nominees.
Friday night, I couldn't sleep. It was so bad that the next day, now I slept from 4 o'clock till the next day 4 o'clock. I did not take supper. This is the first time I feel so deflated. And I feel that it's not that easy to be a parliamentarian. As members of parliament, we should have a collective interest and a collective responsibility. In fact, we have failed ourselves, we have failed the party, and we have failed a majority of Ghanaians. And I wouldn't like to defend anything. The public can lambast us, and we've got to take it like that. I'm very, very sorry. I'm very, very sorry.
It was a sad day for all of us, and I can tell you that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep because immediately after the elections, on my way home, I got a call, and after speaking with that person, a high-ranking person, but my night was like something else. I couldn't sleep. So sad that we could do this to ourselves. But wait a minute. Without any evidence, all of us are the ones who have gone wrong. And that is why some have decided to pull out evidence to show that they went the way the party wanted them to go. And that for me is an eye-opener. What it means is that going forward, each one of us should be expected to do that, because you cannot rely on others and at the end of the day they disappoint you and put all of you in one.
This is the second time this is happening. Kojo Ponkroma, Hawa Kumsin and Co. And now this new set. Do you think that Ghanaians can trust you and now your party can also trust you to do its bidding in Parliament, especially now that the EC is pushing through this year?
That we have an opportunity to redeem ourselves, and that's what I'm looking up to. I know we still have some bills, we still have some taxes to pass, and I can tell you, some of us will not sit and allow this to happen again. If it means each one of us voting and showing pictures, so be it, because Ghanaians have so much trust in us, but what is happening means that they are getting disappointed, and we do not redeem ourselves. We will not have a party to even go into the elections in 2024.
Now to some other stories now. Traders in some areas to be affected by congestion exercise by the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly say they are not ready to move until the city authorities prepare a place for them. Now the KMA has served notice to remove kiosks and containers dotted along some major roads by March 31, 2023. A similar exercise has already taken off in Oforikro municipality of the Ashanti region, but some official affected traders have concerns. Love FM's Nanabuachi Yadom has more in the following report.
The proliferation of kiosks and containers in the city has been a concern. In a planned decongestion exercise, the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly has advised traders in affected areas to voluntarily remove unauthorized containers and kiosks. Meanwhile, the Oforikro Municipal Assembly has already started a similar exercise.
So the decongestion exercise here at Oforikro began from Tech Junction straight to Top High. Traders here are raising concerns. Their issue is that the notice given to them for the decongestion exercise is very, very short.
Ye free ye ho kone de o ma me lete bia na emu masiafo mu mbre mu lete ana notice o mu de bro mu kransa na ye be di Christmas enti o mu be ka chom se nko mu me be 1 month bi nyamfa prepare enso mpanimfo na ye de anti ase do mu kan ne se wote kokoso na ase o mu so me se adwuma no
on ba Wednesday no mo saba Friday o so bi anyi ne ma dey mo de kan se ne ma free ase o ma fo yi o mo ne ma na say through your swas na ya librism na so say dey yi enema nti when they say aha no so many times they two nipa dey free ase but ni wo nyina na say ase ni panyi bi asem si wa o kan dey MIA.
So all containers here at the Southern Bypass from Santase to Ahojo will be affected by the decongestion exercise. Meanwhile, traders here say they have not been officially informed about the exercise and they are not ready to move out of this place for as long as there is no other secured place to send them to.
I'm not ready to move. I'm not ready to move. Because government, no, that is my problem. Was container no me moving kosi mi fie and I say wama ye park bi say yenko and also we prepare a special place for the container people to move there. That is my problem. Into container na mean to no me fan kwa himfa. This is a container that I spend huge amount of money to build. And to where do you want me to go? So I'm not ready to move.
So ka se wutu ye dia. Me ni baby I say ma come near me ni baby I me kwa kwa ye adwuma. Mezu to school man ko bi me nkran susu mienu me na me hye nkola no enti me na pan ma hye nkola no me to me ntimi ko bakro no me ntimi nkoye adwuma bia e mmoa me enti bible se yem fe nsanya adwuma enti anyame asem na me di so na mo to me se yem fa na me nko adwuma be na me nkoye.
However, traders here at the Western Bypass from Abripo Junction to Santase roundabout say they plead with city authorities to reconsider their decision.
I say near a chopper and the Command and National Daroma, Uncle May, no moon for any idea to me and my Bema and semi Brasia Santimem, where you did him, just sitting him. Yakoni Bemina, and encourage you away, Jumian, if you inquiry. I said, Tunia, ye fine. As I see in the baby, I got naso. She crow from Mudia. If you go to that day, you'll be your many pacotinum. Yes, you also between an Ian coin and Katachi.
To get so came a boss on Yabutramayan. Nanka will say, Kabachi Aquachira. That character is a payment in some of my international. A junkie quetch, Nanko Madumin, Yakurama Yamabeko school, Yamabedi. I asked me a bibia.
So as many express their displeasure towards the exercise, others also call on city authorities to give them a date extension. This has been the responses of traders here at Kumasi. For Joy News, my name is Anabuache Dankwaya.
And you're still here watching Johnny's Prime. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with showbiz. Okay, so time for us to bring you showbiz. And this woman is so loved by many. She's one of the most loved people on TV. Becky Bex. Hi, Becky. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, look,
you changed to the introduction, which is okay. That's impressive.
You're loved. Look, I was at Golden Star.
Right?
Golden Star.
Do we have time?
And the people loved you.
Oh, Golden Star. Golden. We should visit them.
One day I'll take you.
Yeah.
There. Okay.
But let's talk about the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris. You know that she is in town, and earlier this afternoon she met with some creatives in Accra. So as part of her visit to Ghana, she met some selected people from the creative industry in Ghana. And the meeting, which took place at the Vibrate Studio at East Legon, had in attendance artists like Black Sherif, Amare, Mensah, Joey B, Rhea Boss, Baba J, and Poitra Asantewa. So American actress Cheryl Lee Ralph and British actor Idris Elba were also present. In her address, Kamala Harris spoke about the great connection between Ghana and America and appreciated the works produced by Ghanaian creatives. She also added that culture and creative industries are influencing the world beyond measure. Let's listen to the Vice President of the U.S.
For me to be able to come here during this trip on my first full day in Ghana really is symbolic of the connection that we have as people and as nations. But the creative work that is happening on this continent, as represented by the work that is happening here in Ghana, is extraordinary in terms of the international global impact. Now, this is not a new phenomenon, but it is something with all of the current excitement about the evolution of culture and music and artistry. That is very significant. What is happening here is changing the way.
So in the same meeting, you know, Cheryl, she's been in town for, American actress Cheryl Lee Ralph, she's been in town for a week now, and there was a brunch held in her honor by EMY Africa that was yesterday, and I was there and came through with this report.
I just want you to know it's taken me 40 years to become an overnight sensation.
Inspirational, beautiful, and more inspiration is the best description of the welcome reception for Emmy Award-winning actress Cheryl Lee Ralph. Brunch put together by EMY Africa in collaboration with Dr. McKinney Hammond was to inspire and create the avenue to bridge the gap between Hollywood and Ghana.
Okay, so at EMY Africa, our agenda is to inspire greatness, and that is our mantra. That is our tagline, inspiring greatness. Cheryl Lee Ralph is a successful American actress, one of the Hollywood's greats, a black actress that just won the Emmy for Best Actress in Comedy Series. Never been won in the last 35 years by a black woman. That is a huge achievement. And so when she said she was coming to Ghana to visit one of our board members, Michelle McKinney-Hammond, Michelle and I thought, why not? Why don't we do an event and invite especially women in the creative industry so that Cheryl can share a story, interact with them, and impact them. As you rightly said, our world without inspiration is nothing.
Well, the event was nothing short but that. Industry players took their turns to interact and seek guidance from the Hollywood star. Some spoke to Joy News.
By the way, I love Cheryl so much, and what I took away from this brunch is her tenacity. She had such a firm foundation, you can see, even from support from her family. She knew exactly who she was, and she knew the part of her she wanted to share with the world. And for me, that speaks volumes.
Dr. McKinney Hammond, a best-selling author, actress, and international speaker, emphasized the need for the industry to support each other in building a formidable sector.
And that's all I mean to accomplish, is to get everybody to fall in love with Ghana. But I also wanted the film and music industry, the creative industry here, to just be inspired and be infused with new, fresh hope. The possibilities are endless. We just have to become creative. We have to think outside of the box, stop looking for the handout, and find a way to do it, which is important for us as Ghanaians, to come together and help each other out.
Now the woman of the moment, Cheryl Lee Ralph, who has been in Ghana for a week. What does she make of her rather short visit to the motherland?
I have to tell you that this is my very first time to Ghana. It's a country that I've always wanted to visit in Africa. And my friend Michelle had been inviting me, and I kept saying, no, busy, work. And finally, a week before, I said, I'm coming. So I've been here 1 week, and it has been amazing. It's been wonderful. I've had some very wonderful experiences. You know, my mom is from Jamaica, and I when I got here the very first day, I posted, wow, I feel like I have not left Jamaica. So many similarities, and it's just been overall wonderful. You know, we went to visit the CAD manufacturing, and my kids are like, wow, mommy, we have to work with them. And I was like, absolutely. And I think for me, it's always a good thing to make business connections, entrepreneurial connections, meet people. You don't always have to go to, you don't have to always go to China. Right. There are great talents right here in Ghana. You know, and you can come work here that can take you from the very beginning to the very end of your production. I was so happy to learn that and see that. You know, I'm very into health and well-being and education, and we went to WAPAC and met the women over there and saw how they're so strong in their dedication to raise up the community, to keep them safe and healthy, and I loved that. And we went down to Choco, to one of the schools, to talk to the children, to plant seeds of hope. And I just felt so good. And they said to me, some of them need scholarship in order to go to school. And I said, you know what? And that's exactly what they're going to get.
And that's how we wrap up the bulletin. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. But remember to brush your teeth before you sleep tonight. And then when you wake up tomorrow morning, do that with either Pepsodent Cavity Fighter, Pepsodent Charcoal, Pepsodent Herbal, or Pepsodent Triple Protection. Because with Pepsodent, every smile matters. Thanks for staying with us. Up next is Prime Business. Good evening.